This is the Prophecy Project. Understanding the times, the nations in military conflicts, with Bible teacher and author Alan Bonk.
Welcome. This is the 7th video in a new series of prophecy videos. It is now 2022 and things are changing all around us. By that, I mean the world, its plagues and governments are going out of control. This is a study of the second book of Ezra, which is also called For Ezra. The videos are divided into individual chapters from the book. Some chapters will be longer than others, and some have a lot of personal input and questions from Ezra himself. However, most of the chapters are still prophetic in nature. I have given each chapter a simple title from something I found in that chapter. Chapter 7 is Christ Shall Come After 400 Years. Chapter 7, verse 1. And when I made an end of speaking these words, there was sent unto me the angel which had been sent unto me the nights before. And he said unto me, Up, Ezra, and hear the words that I have come to tell thee. And I said, Speak on, my God. Then said he unto me, The sea is set in a wide place, that it might be deep and great. But put the case, the entrance were narrow, and like a river. Who then could go up into the sea to look upon it and to rule it? If he went not through the narrow, how could he come into the broad? There is also another thing. A city is builded and set upon a broad field, and is full of all good things, and the entrance thereof is narrow, and is set in a dangerous place to fall, like as if it were a fire on the right side, and on the left a deep water, and one only path between them. Both, even between the fire and the water, so small that there would but one man go there at once. If this city were given unto a man for an inheritance, if he never shall pass the danger set before it, how shall he receive this inheritance? And I said, It is so, Lord. Then said he unto me, Even so also is Israel's portion, because for their sakes I made the world, and when Adam transgressed my statutes, then was decree that now is done. Then were the entrances of this world made narrow, full of sorrow and travail, that they are but few and evil, full of perils and very painful. For the entrances of the elder world were wide and sure, and brought immortal fruit. If then they that live labor not to enter these straight and vain things, they can never receive that which are laid up for them. This doctrine of the narrow way is not new. It can be found in Matthew 7:14, because strait is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. Verse 15. Now therefore, why disquiet thyself, seeing that thou art but a corruptible man? And why art thou moved, whereas thou art but mortal? Why hast thou not considered in thy mind this thing that is to come, rather than that which is present? We see Ezra again being exhorted to stop looking at the past, and to focus on the things to come, the things that God really wants him to understand. Don't look back, look forward. The Apostle Paul tells us, Forgetting those things which are behind, I press towards the mark of the high calling of God. Verse 17. Then answered I and said, O Lord, that bearest rule, thou hast ordained in thy law that the righteous should inherit these things, but the ungodly should perish. And nevertheless the righteous shall suffer strait things, and hope for the wide. For they that have done wickedly have suffered the straight things, and yet shall not see the wide. And he, the angel, said unto me, There is no judge above God, and none that hath understanding above the highest. For there be many that perish in this life, because they despise the law of God that is set before them. God is addressing the people who had received the law, the Torah. The many that perish are Jewish. They had despised the law. They had not labored to enter in. Just being born into the tribes does not mean they are righteous. All men must choose their response to God and his ways. Even then, the way is narrow. The people to come that we saw in verse 234, who will receive God's blessings, those who came out from the heathen, are those who hear and understand, not everyone. Verse 21. For God hath given straight commandment to such as came, what they should do to live, even as they came, and what they should observe to avoid punishment. And nevertheless, they were not obedient unto him, but spake against him, and imagined vain things, and deceived themselves by their wicked deeds, and said of the Most High, He is not, and knew not his ways. The book of Romans, in chapter 1, verse 21 and 22, it speaks to the same condition as Ezra speaks to, and the results from disobedience and rebellion to God. Verse 21, because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God. Neither were they thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. Back to Ezra, verse 24. But his law they have despised, and denied his covenants. In his statutes they have not been faithful, and have not performed his works. And therefore, Ezra, for the empty are empty things, and for the full are full things. Behold, the time shall come that these tokens or signs which I have told thee shall come to pass, and the bride shall appear, and she coming forth shall be seen, and now is withdrawn from the earth. Ezra is told that the time will come when the signs of God that God is revealing to him will come to pass. And in that time the bride shall appear. It is said that she will come forth and shall be seen, because she will have been withdrawn, removed from the earth. Now, Ezra probably has no idea who the bride is, or why she has been withdrawn from the earth. We will see who she is as we read on. However, we can extrapolate some facts from where we are right now. First, her appearing will be a sign from God. It is a token. She is now, during Ezra's time, already in her place of waiting. All saints that are to be resurrected unto God during Ezra's time were in Sheol, Abraham's bosom, and were resurrected at the time of Christ's resurrection on the third day. They walked around Jerusalem and were seen by many. However, the fullness of the bride will not be complete until the resurrection of the dead in Christ, and those who are alive and remain are withdrawn from the earth, caught away, harpazoed. Secondly, she will be seen when she appears or is revealed. She will come from beyond the dead. Simply because of the time lapse, she belongs to God and would be in paradise, and at the end, the third heaven, waiting for her coming forth. This event has not yet happened. At the time of the making of this video, we would have seen her, but we have not. Verse 27. And whosoever is delivered from the foresaid evils shall see my wonders. For my Son Jesus shall be revealed with those that be with him. And also, they that remain shall rejoice within 400 years. After these years shall my Son Christ die, and all men that have life. In these 3 verses, we are given 3 names for the Messiah. He is called my Son, and Jesus, and Christ. So the Messiah, any of those 3 names can cause grief for Jewish scholars, and would result in the removal of these verses, or perhaps the entire book. It is not surprising that this book is not in the Jewish canon, and is instead attributed to Christian sources. The reference to 400 years is very interesting when you understand that Ezra lived about 400 years before Jesus of Nazareth appeared in Israel. The time between Ezra and the arrival of Jesus is called by some the silent 400 years. Verse 29 states that after the 400 years, my Son Christ will die. This is done that all men can have life. Some say that this proves that the book of Ezra was written after the fact of Jesus' death. However, it must be considered that Isaiah, an Old Testament prophet, wrote in his chapter 53 that the Messiah would die for the sins of his people, and his blood would cleanse many. I'll read it. 53:8. He was cut off out of the land of the living. For the transgression of my people was he stricken. And he made his grave with the wicked and with the rich in his death. Because he had no violence, neither was there any deceit in his mouth. Yet it pleased the Lord to bruise him. He hath put him to grief, when thou shalt make his soul an offering for sin. Isaiah 53 has been rejected by some because they thought it could have been written after the fact, just like Ezra. Written by Christians to bolster their claims. This view of the chapter was maintained for almost 2,000 years. This was the case until the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, which are dated well before the advent of Jesus. And the Dead Sea Scripture scrolls that they found included many copies of the book of Isaiah, of which chapter 53 was intact just as it is today. It was not altered by anyone then or now. Verse 30. After the world shall be turned into the old silence 7 days, like as in the former judgment, so that no man shall remain. And after 7 days the world that yet awakeneth not shall be raised up. And that shall die that is corrupt. And the earth shall restore those that are asleep in her. And so shall the dust of those that dwell in silence and the secret places shall deliver those souls that were committed unto them. And the Most High shall appear upon the seat of judgment, and misery shall pass away, and long suffering shall have an end. The term old silence is a mystery. We are told that it will be like the former judgments. I think that God's long suffering of the world's conditions will come to an end after 7 days. I believe the duration of Adam's race on the earth will be 7 days, or 1 week in length. The length of 1 day would be 1,000 years long. Let me read 2 Peter 3:8. But beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that 1 day with the Lord is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as 1 day. The Lord is not slack concerning his promise, as some men count slackness, but is long-suffering to usward, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. After 7,000 years, God will appear on the seat of judgment, or the judgment seat, and his long-suffering shall have an end. The miseries and the heartache of this world and the sin will have an end. I have charted the timeline of biblical events from Adam all the way till today, and have found that they were at or very near what we are right now at the end of the sixth day, roughly 6,000 years, Anno Mundi, after Adam. The first day would have ended early in Noah's life. The second day would have ended early in Abraham's life. The third day would have ended sometime during the judges of Israel and the beginning of the kings in David's time. The fourth day ended when Jesus came, about 1,000 years long after Adam. The fifth day ended about the time of the first crusade. And the sixth day is set to end at any time now. Then the seventh day will begin, which is better known and we understand it as the millennium, the 1,000 years, which ends with the great white throne judgment. We see that in Revelations. And the final resurrection of the unrighteous dead. You can read this in Revelation 20, 1 through 15. You can do this yourself. Dear viewer, I have given this seventh day information to you in keeping with the spirit of Ezra, who always wants to know when and how long and where are we now. I acknowledge that it is a broad brush treatment, but this is, after all, a study of Ezra 4, for Ezra, not the seventh day. Verse 34. But the judgment only shall remain. Truth shall stand, and faith shall be strong, and the work shall follow, and the reward shall be showed. And the good deeds shall be of force, and the wicked deeds shall bear no rule. The works which God's servants have done, which they should receive after their lives, the treasures and rewards in heaven, which Jesus exhorted his followers to seek, which remain and stand the test of time, these works do follow, and only faith will remain. The works of the flesh and of man will dissolve away and have no effect. Verse 36. Then said I, Abraham prayed for the Sodomites, Moses for the father that sinned in the wilderness, and Jesus, Yeshua, after him for Israel in the time of Achan, and Samuel and David for the destruction of Solomon, for them that should come to the sanctuary, and Hellas for those that receive rain, and for the dead, that he might live, and Ezekiel for the people in the time of Sennacherib, and many for many. Even so, seeing corruption has grown up, and wickedness increased, and righteousnesses have prayed for the ungodly. Therefore shall it not be so now also. Again, Ezra goes back to the past to make a case. It is true that godly men have always prayed and interceded for other men unto God, and it will always be appropriate for intercession to be made for men by those who have a relationship with God. Ezra is a priest, and a priest is an intercessor by definition. I suspect that Ezra is actually hinting at the possibility of changing the effects or judgments of the signs that he has just been shown. As I said, this is just speculation on my part. However, we will see the answer that Ezra receives, and it may show us, and Ezra, that the end times will be different than any other time of the world, and the old patterns will change. Verse 42. He answered me and said, This present life is not the end where much glory doth abide. Therefore they have prayed for the weak. But the day of doom shall be the end of this time, and the beginning of immortality to come, wherein corruption is past, intemperance is at end, infidelity is cut off, righteousness is grown, and truth is sprung up. Then shall no man be able to save him that is destroyed, nor oppress him that hath gotten the victory. Verse 45 answers Ezra's questions concerning intercession for the ungodly. It says, then, or at that time, then shall no man be able to save him that is destroyed. Verse 46. I answered then and said, this is my first and last saying, that it had been better not to have given the earth unto Adam, or else, when it was given him, to restrain him from sinning? For what profit is it for man now in this present time to live in heaviness, and after death to look for punishment? O thou Adam, what hast thou done? For though it was thou that sinned, thou art not fallen alone, but we all that come from thee. Ezra actually complains to God that God should not have given the earth to Adam. Or if you had to, you should have prevented Adam from sinning. Oh, well, so much for free will. Ezra's thinking is that things would have been much better without Adam. He reasons, what kind of life can a man have when he only has judgment and punishment to look forward to? This is the classic statement, eat, drink, be merry, for tomorrow we die. It's a fatalist view of life. This seems perplexing to me because Ezra is a priest and would have understood the blood sacrificial system for the atonement of sin. When blood is applied to someone's sins, they can be forgiven, covered. Ezra also complains to Adam, the father of us all. He says, what have thou done? Thou art not fallen alone. It seems interesting to me that he speaks to Adam. Ezra is acknowledging that Adam is not dead. Though he died, yet he lives. Verse 49. For what profit is it unto us if there be promised to us an immortal time, whereas we have done the works that bring death? And that there is promised us an everlasting hope, whereas ourselves, being most wicked, are made vain. And that there are laid up for us dwellings of health and safety, whereas we have lived wickedly. And that the glory of the Most High is kept to defend them that have led a weary life, whereas we have walked in the most wicked ways of all. And that there should be showed a paradise whose fruit endureth forever, wherein security and medicine, since we shall not enter into it, for we have walked in unpleasant places. And that the faces of them which have used abstinence shall shine like the stars, whereas our faces shall be blacker than darkness. For while we lived and committed iniquity, we considered not that we should begin to suffer for it after death. Ezra acknowledges that man has committed sin, and he believes that there may be some who have lived a weary life and used abstinence who will be defended and blessed by God. They will receive the inheritance of a dwelling place after life in this life to come. But he puts himself and others as unworthy to enter into God's kingdom. Our faces shall be blacker in darkness, and we are made in vain. Ezra admits that we considered not that we should begin to suffer for it after death. Scripture tells us that there's none righteous, no, not one. The truth is, there is no man, no men are worthy or without sin and good enough to enter into God's kingdom. Yes, this is a horrible reality. And all men are unworthy of God, but it's true. The disciples of Jesus thought that the rich and powerful could enter in, but Jesus said no, especially not the righteous Pharisees, the religious ones. The disciples asked him, who then can be saved? Big question. Jesus said, with God, all things are possible. God's true plan for redemption of man was a mystery at that time when the disciples were asking him, and also at the time that Ezra is assessing the same problem 400 years earlier. The plan of God to make the perfect sacrifice for sin would only work if the powers of darkness did not know the plan. They had to crucify Jesus. They had to believe they had gotten the victory over him. 1 Corinthians 2, 7 and 8. But we speak the wisdom of God in a mystery, even the hidden wisdom, which God ordained before the world unto our glory, which none of the princes of this world knew. For had they known it, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. Jesus could not reveal the plan to his servants before it happened. And the angel could not tell the plan to Ezra 400 years earlier. We, of course, don't actually know how much the angel had been told at Ezra's time. He may not have known either. Verse 57. Then answered he, Uriel, me, and said, this is the condition of the battle. Which man is born upon the earth shall fight. That if he be overcome, he shall suffer, as thou hast said. But if he get the victory, he shall receive the thing I say. For this is the life thereof. Moses spake unto the people while he lived, saying, choose thee life, that thou mayest live. Nevertheless they believed him not, nor yet the prophets after him, no, nor me, which have spoken unto them, that there should not be such heaviness in their destruction, as they be joy over them that are persuaded to salvation. The reference in verse 58 to fighting the fight, and if he overcomes, he shall get the victory. This is also seen in Revelation 12:10. Then I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, now salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ have come. For the accuser of our brethren, who accused them before our God day and night, has been cast down. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. They did not love their lives to death. I answered then, in verse 62, and said, I know, Lord, that the Most High is called merciful, in that he hath mercy upon them which are not yet come into the world, and upon those also that turn to his law, and that he is patient and long-suffering to those that have sinned as his creatures, and that he is bountiful, for he is ready to forgive or give where needed. And he that is of great mercy, for he multiplieth more and more mercy to them that are present, and that are past, and also to them that are to come. For if he shall not multiply his mercies, the world would not continue with them that inherit therein. And he pardoneth, for if he did not so of his goodness, that they which have committed iniquities might be east of them, the 10,000th part of men should not remain living. And being judge, if he should not forgive them that are cured by his word, and put out the multitude of contentions, there should be very few left peradventure in an innumerable multitude. Ezra extols the positive attributes of God, and that God did not pardon and show mercies if he did not pardon. Then only one man out of 10,000 would survive the judgments and the wrath of God at the end of the world. If God is using Ezra to prophesy about the end times, then this figure of 1/10,000th of men left over, when it's all over, is significant. This ratio is not for saved or unsaved peoples. It is only men left alive. After the wrath and signs of God are complete, the larger the number of people living at the end of the age, then the larger the number of people left alive at the end. We are told there is an innumerable multitude, but only few will be left alive. We know that about 8 billion people live on the earth right now. If the ratio was applied to the earth today, only 800,000 people will survive at the end. This is about 10 football stadiums full of people. Not 10 nations, not 10 cities, but only 10 stadiums left of everyone in the world. This is the end of chapter 7. You can go to the next video in the series to continue to chapter 8 or to any other chapter you wish to view. Thank you for watching.
This was only one session of many. Be sure to continue watching the Prophecy Project series. If you would like to read more information on this subject, you can find Alan's books on Amazon.com.